Hi, everyone. It's Erin. It's Wednesday, and I'm so happy to be with you today to share some really valuable information about stress reduction and why you should be doing it and how you can be doing it. So thanks for joining me. And let's go ahead and just hop right in. Before we do hop in, I'd love to share just a quick little bit about myself. So today we're going to be talking about overwhelm. I'm a health coach and I help people with nutrition. I help people get moving. I help people get better sleep. But I also help people reduce stress. And I work mostly with women. And I got to tell you, overwhelm is a thing. It's a thing that so many women out there today are feeling. And it's really, really, really important that we talk about it, especially in the context of stress reduction. We want to be reducing stress in our lives because, well, it impacts our health physically, mentally, emotionally. So anything we can be doing to minimize the stress in our lives and to minimize the impact of that, we need to be working on it. So that's what I help women do, is to minimize stress and to really dive into true self-care by learning to prioritize themselves so that they can be eating better, so that they do start moving, so that they are getting better nights sleep, and so that that feeling of overwhelm and stress in their lives can be reduced. And really, when we look at health this way, from this holistic perspective, amazing things happen. So that's a little bit about me. And let's jump in. So overwhelm. What is overwhelm? Well, overwhelm is something that feels a little bit different to all of us, but it's definitely a feeling. It's a sense. We feel it in our bodies. We feel it in our brains. It can feel, usually it doesn't feel very good at all. Okay. So overwhelm is essentially what's happening. It's when our nervous system goes into a place of just being overloaded. And we will go into a place of it's called our sympathetic nervous system. And this is something that we want to only try to use when we're actually in a fight or flight or freeze situation. Everyday life should not be putting you into a fight, flight, or freeze place. We live these crazy busy lives, though, and lots of us are chronically in a place of sympathetic nervous system. We're chronically feeling, if you feel like sometimes you're so busy you have a hard time catching your breath, you're in your sympathetic nervous system. We need to get you out. It's, like I said, it's really, really, really detrimental to your physical, mental, and your emotional health. So how can we do it? Because, ladies, I know life is busy, okay? I know. And often when I talk about this, the resistance that I get is around women telling me, wow, there's a plane right overhead. Can you hear that? Telling me, Erin, you don't understand. My life is so hectic. I'm working 40 to 60 hours a week. I'm raising children. My husband works away. Like, life is insane. And I get that. And I just want to start by acknowledging that I know life is busy and we need to find workarounds. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive in. So what does overwhelm feel like? Well, I mean, I don't think I know women who don't experience overwhelm at least once a week. Very few women, right? And it can feel like that sensation of you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, or it can feel like you're just deeply exhausted, often in a mental way. It can lead to depression. If you feel like you're cranky all the time, you're probably in a state of overwhelm. So let me know in the comments how you experience overwhelm and how it shows up in your life. I'd love to hear about that. So let's talk today about what you can do in the moment when you realize you're in a place of overwhelm, and what you can do proactively to try to, make sure that you get there. I'm not going to say never, but make sure that you get there less often. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me just pull up my notes because I always want to make sure I don't forget things. Okay, so here we go. So the reason, I'm going to tell you a quick story, because the reason that I wanted to talk, the reason this came up for me as a great thing to talk about was I had a crazy morning last week. I had to drop my car off at the shop first thing in the morning, which was actually okay because it was a beautiful fall day, and I took the opportunity to walk home from the shop. I got my exercise in. It really was a gorgeous day. So I kind of took it slow and just took the time to experience the beauty that was happening around me. And that was great. And it was really good for my nervous system, you know, because I was left the house feeling like, oh, I have so much to do. And then going for that walk and taking that time to settle my nervous system was really great. So I arrived home feeling very regulated. So regulated means when your nervous system's in a good place, right? When you're feeling, it's called your parasympathetic nervous system. So it's feeling really great. I got home, I walked in the door, and it was like my nervous system was thrown into overdrive. It sent into a total tizzy. I walked in the door and there was dirty dishes on the counter. The cat was meowing to be fed. My son had forgotten to feed him. My son had left a mess, like a huge, crazy mess on the table before he went to school. And I realized at that point that I had taken so long on my walk, enjoying the beautiful fall day, that I was 15 minutes late for work. I work from home. And as so often happens to me when I'm out walking and appreciating nature, I got a lot of ideas, right, for work and for things like that. So I had all these wonderful ideas crashing through my head. And when that's happening, I know I need to get them down on paper, right? Because otherwise I have to work really hard to try to remember them. And that takes a lot of energy. And that in and of itself feels overwhelming. So I walked in the door and it kind of all hit me. And I was just like, fuck, like that's too much. There's only one of me, and all those thoughts for me that happen as I'm in a place of overwhelm. And this is good to recognize for yourself. What are the triggers for your overwhelm, and what are the thoughts and the beliefs that come up when you're in a place of overwhelm? So for me, it's that I'm a single parent. So it's like, oh, like I'm the only adult around here and there's just not enough of me to go around. Thoughts and beliefs around how I just, you know, what's wrong with me? I can't get it all done, things like that. So all of these thoughts started crashing around in my head with the wonderful ideas. So overwhelm had set in. I was in a place of overwhelm, right? And so what did I do? I began running around the house. I was jotting a couple ideas at a time down on a piece of paper. Then I would run to the kitchen and put a few dishes in the dishwasher. And then I would run back to the piece of paper and jot a few ideas down. And then I went in and like turned on my computer. And then I went to the kitchen and turned the kettle on, and then more clearing off the counter and cursing my son and his mess and freaking out because I was late for work and I needed to get started, and more notes down the piece of paper. And oh, the cat, would it just please shut up? I'll feed you in a second. Like trying to do it all at once. And even just thinking about it and talking about it like that, I can feel my nervous system rising and I can feel the overwhelm setting in, and I'm not even there doing it anymore, right? So it's our body really reacts. So all that calm and peace that I had on my walk, it was gone. And it was replaced by a woman literally running around her house like a chicken with her head cut off. That's exactly what I was doing. And I wasn't getting anything done quickly. I was just not in a great place. Like, yeah, it was brutal. So like I said, every woman I know gets to this place at least once a week, right? Because we are busy. We do have so much going on, okay? And it really can feel like there's not enough of us to go around to do all the things that need to get done. This is real, okay? This is sort of how we have our lives set up these days. And there's societal implications to that and things like that. I'm not going to get into that. But so what I've really been working on for myself and with my clients is to learn how to leave this kind of overwhelm behind. And I have to say, the more that I have been working on this, what happens is that in those moments, I'm able to see it and acknowledge it really quickly and get myself out of that spinning, right? Because what's happening is you're in a spin cycle there, essentially, when you're in that moment. And so when we work on this, we first of all learn to recognize it's happening and then learn the techniques. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. of what to do in that moment, we can get ourselves out of it really quickly, okay? And we can move ourselves back into a parasympathetic state, which is what we want for our health, okay? And so the more I do this for myself, the more I help other people do this. This is friends and family, my son, but also my clients, the better life in general gets, okay? So let's talk about how you can get out of overwhelm fast, and then we'll talk about more proactive stuff you can do. So I call it the ABBA method, and who doesn't love a good ABBA song, you know? So what you have to do is, the first thing you have to do is you have to acknowledge, okay? So you have to realize that you're there. You have to be able to have the self-awareness to go, ooh, I am spinning right now, okay? Let's deal with it. Okay, so the first step in incorporating this into your life is to begin to acknowledge when it's happening, to acknowledge what your triggers are, and just to sense that. So once you notice that you're there, once you acknowledge that it's happening, for me that day, really, it was literally, and I think this is because I've been practicing it, it was really just a voice inside my head that was like, Erin, stop. Okay, like it literally was like someone else was talking to me. When you're first starting to do this, you can rope in family members, right, to point it out to you kindly and gently, because in that moment, you know, sometimes people have to be careful how they speak to you if you're in that place. So you can ask people to say, hey, if you notice that I'm sort of spinning out in a place of overwhelm, and this is what that looks like for me, would you mind just gently, like maybe, you know, touching me on the arm and say, hey, mom, or hey, Martha, whatever, you know, if your husband wants to talk to you, I noticed right now that it's happening. I just want to tell you, I notice it's happening. And that's it, right? It's not for them to fix, it's for you to fix. But get people to help you out in noticing when it's happening, because it can be so automatic that we don't even notice it's happening. So learn to acknowledge it first. And then within the process of in that moment, you acknowledge that it's happening, and then you have to stop, but you have to take a breath. Okay. If our nervous system is in that sympathetic place, we're using this part of our brain back here, and we want to move up to this part of our brain here so we can make good decisions. One of the fastest ways to move into your parasympathetic nervous system is to breathe. Okay. When we're in overwhelm and fight or flight, our breath is shallow. Our breathing is, our body is telling us to breathe shallowly, but our shallow breath is also telling our minds that we should be panicking. So we want to, it's like reverse engineering the mind, right? So if we start breathing deeply, it tells our nervous system and our brain that there's not that much to worry about, okay? So we start taking, the second step is to start taking very conscious, very deep breaths, okay? Stop moving. Stop thinking about everything else and focus, and don't tell yourself to stop thinking, just focus on your breath and do deep belly breaths. So you breathe into your stomach 3 to 10 times, and really, this is important, slow on the out breath. Your out breath has to be longer than your in breath. And this is immediately going to bring that nervous system down, okay? It can feel difficult to do when you're in that place of a million things to do. And often what comes up for us is, I don't have time for this right now. But if you can go through this whole process, this whole ABBA process, it takes about 2 minutes. You're actually going to be more productive. So in the long run, it's absolutely worth it. So take the time, acknowledge, deep belly breaths, long on the out breath, okay? And then the third thing you need to do, I call it a body scan. So a body scan is literally scanning your body to see what's going on there. So if there's something that your body needs, it's going to be really hard, again, to make good decisions. If you're hungry, if you're dehydrated, if you're sleep deprived, if maybe you haven't moved your body in a couple of days, like if there's things that your physiology is needing and it's not getting it, like then you're more likely to stay in this part of your brain. And again, we want to be in this part of our brain, right? So ask yourself, like as you're taking the deep breaths, is like, am I hungry? And close your eyes if it helps. Am I hungry? Maybe I need a glass of water. I'm really tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. So acknowledge these things that are happening in your body, and then take a moment and deal with them, okay? So if you're in a place, if you're really hungry, your limbic system back here is going to be activated. Your limbic system is responsible for regulating emotions. It's responsible for certain like survival related behaviors, so that fight or flight. It's responsible for your emotional responses. So if you're feeling irritable, cranky, things like that, we've got to see like, is my limbic system turned on because I actually really need to eat? It impacts our cognitive ability. If we're really dehydrated, or if we're hungry, or if we're sleep deprived, our cognitive ability, our ability to think, is impaired, right? And our stress response is on. And then there's like, if you're hungry, we have to look at like, do you have low blood sugar right now? Are there hormonal changes that are happening because I'm hungry? Dehydration and sleep can also put us in a place where we have low blood pressure or hormonal changes. So if there is something your body needs, deal with this first. Prioritize your body, prioritize yourself, okay? Have something to eat if you're hungry. Make it high protein. Have a glass of water. If you're like, oh yeah, I'm actually like, haven't had anything to drink in like 24 hours because I've been so busy, stop, have a glass of water. And obviously if you're tired because you didn't sleep well last night, most of us can't just go back to bed. That's not necessarily the right thing to do for a poor night's sleep. Anyways, that's a different training. I can talk about that. But acknowledge the lack of sleep and alter our pace or to-do list to compensate. And we're going to get into the to-do list in the next step. So acknowledge that it's a thing and that it needs to be, we need to work with it, sort of that exhaustion from lack of sleep, instead of resisting it. Again, you may feel like you do not have time to do this, but a properly fueled and functioning body gets more done, and it gets more done in a calmer manner, right? Because at the end of the day, this is all about, what are we trying to do? We're trying to reduce stress in our lives, because stress is really, really, really bad for us. And being overwhelmed is stressful, right? So do your body scan. What does your body need? I know you might feel like you don't have the time to sit down and eat for 10 minutes. Make the time, okay? In the long run, it's just going to improve everything. So then the fourth step you need to do is to arrange. So this is the last A in ABBA. And so this is otherwise known as getting organized, but more importantly, properly prioritizing. So this is the to-do list part of it, right? And this is a big one. Before you do this, you have to have done the above things so that you can be coming at the arranging from a calmer place than when you started this process. If you're trying to do the arranging and you're still spinning, you're going to make really poor choices in the prioritization. So deciding what is priority and focusing on one thing at a time is always what we want to do. Why? Well, multitasking doesn't actually work. When I was running around my house trying to do all of the things that I thought needed to be done at the same time, I was kind of getting very little done. And I was super stressed out and I was cranky and nothing felt good. So what would have been better in that moment was to pick one thing and to focus in on it and to do it and then move on to the next task. This is a much more productive, efficient way of working, okay? So we want to take a minute to prioritize. Again, this is like, you have to be in a place, you have to calm down first so you can understand that taking a minute to write things down on paper, so your brain's not holding it. We'll talk about this in a second. Taking a minute to do that is going to help you get things done more productively than not doing it, okay? So you have to be able to, you have to be in a prefrontal cortex frame of mind thinking so that you know that, okay? Your limbic mind is going to tell you something different. So that's why we acknowledge, breathe, do the body scan first, okay, before we start arranging, so that we can really prioritize here. The cat has joined us. You might hear him meowing. He's super meowy these days. So why do we want to, let's talk about this actually for a second. Because I think that, because I hear a lot of women say, yeah, but I'm good at multitasking, right? This is like a belief that a lot of us have. And we've even been taught that as women, we are better at multitasking than men, which to some degree is true because our brains are structured differently than a man's. And to some degree, this is true, okay? But this is true in terms of like, you can make dinner and watch the baby at the same time, right? This is a biological function so that we can keep children alive, essentially. So we are able to do it, but the thought that, that we can clean the house and fill out the permission slips for our kids and do the work you brought home and make dinner all at the same time and be productive in that is a fallacy. Okay, this is false. So let's talk about this a minute, because I do think this is such a deeply held belief for so many women. So focusing on one task at a time allows you to give it your full attention, and then you can give your full cognitive resources to that task. You can give all of your mind to the one task, right? When you're bouncing back and forth between tasks and you're multitasking, this requires your brain to constantly be switching between tasks, which is actually more taxing on your brain. It takes a lot more energy. Okay, so you're going to tire faster. It increases cognitive load. So same thing, it's a lot of work for the brain to do that. And that can actually put you in a state of physiological stress. Okay, you might not even notice it's happening, but it's going to happen. And all of this actually leads to reduced productivity. You're going to do less. Okay, when we focus on a single task until it's completed, or you've made significant progress, some projects take days, you can often you'll finish it more quickly than if you're switching between tasks, but it also allows you to enter a flow state. And there's books written about this, there's studies, and what we want to try to do in all the tasks we're doing is to get into this flow state, because from this flow state, you'll be faster, but also the quality of output is likely to be better. Like so many studies on this, okay? And this is an important one. And when you're finished, you're gonna feel a bigger level of accomplishment when you finish it than if you were multitasking, okay? And this is huge for mental health, right? Because when we accomplish something and we complete something, our brain releases all these happy chemicals. And so we want that feeling of accomplishment. And you're more likely to experience that if you've finished, if you're focusing on one single task and you complete that or make significant progress. So really part of this is about creating the to-do list. We want to create a to-do list because when we're holding all the to-dos up in our head, that takes work, okay? And the more strategies we can put in place to get this brain of ours, like to have it, to give it a little bit less to do, the better. So we do want to create a list. This is important. You can do it on a piece of paper, you can do it in your phone, you can do it in your calendar. That is totally up to you, how you choose to do that. But it's important that the list is put somewhere that is easily accessible, that you don't have to scramble looking for it. We don't want to lose it, right? And so that your brain doesn't have to hold on to all that. So it's about creating a list, but more importantly, it's about creating a prioritized list. Okay, so the list has to be prioritized. And I'm going to talk about how to create a properly prioritized list in just a second here. But let's just go over ABBA again. So you have to acknowledge that the overwhelm is happening. You have to stop. You got to take 3 deep breaths. Take the breath into your belly and long breath out, longer breath out. Okay. And then do a body scan. Is there something that my physiological self needs? Do I need food? Do I need water? Am I tired? Right? Do I need to breathe? Sometimes it's like, oh, I actually just needed to breathe. I wasn't really breathing. And then and then after we do those 3 things, this is when we arrange. So this is when we make the list and we make it a list that is very, very well prioritized. Okay. So that day I did this, it took me all of 2 minutes, right? When I talk about it, it sounds like it's going to take forever. I think the process took me 2 minutes. I had breakfast. I didn't have to stop to eat. I just had a glass of water. I took a few deep breaths, acknowledged what was happening. And what was happening simply was that there was too many things going on at the same time. I was feeling rushed, I was feeling pressured, I was feeling stressed, right? You know, and this is important. I also acknowledged that I was the only person who had the power to change how I was feeling. Yeah, my son had left a mess and forgotten to, you know, the circumstances, like it wasn't about putting fault or blame anywhere, right? But at the end of the day, how I was feeling, I was the only one who had the power to change that. Nobody else, right? That was up to me. I don't own a magic wand that can whisk away the mess or get me to work on time. I don't think anyone does. If you do, please tell me where I can buy it. I've looked on Amazon, it's not there. I want that magic wand, right? But this trick for getting rid of overwhelm in the moment, this ABBA, it does work, but you got to give it a chance, okay? So then how do we make that prioritized list? Well, I'm going to get into that right now, but I'm going to do it in the context of how we get ahead of the overwhelm. So how do we structure or do things in our life so that the overwhelm happens less? Okay, it's pretty hard to get rid of it entirely, but if we have the method for dealing with it in the moment, and we have the method for, you know, structuring our lives in a way that reduces the amount of times you're being sent into a place of overwhelm, we're doing great. Okay, so how do you get ahead of the overwhelm? Well, you take time to prioritize before overwhelm hits. So I recommend to all of my clients that you take time to prioritize, make a prioritized list, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So please keep watching, watch the end of the video. I also have a printable for you, so you can do this at home. It's a great resource. So watch the end, I'll give you the printable. So you take, I recommend taking 5 minutes to prioritize your week on Sunday night or Monday morning, depending, or if your work week is different. So I usually say the start of your work week or the end of your weekend. So just sitting down for 5 minutes to prioritize your week. Okay. I also recommend doing this for the day, having a daily prioritization. This one takes usually about 2 minutes. And you can do it in the morning of that particular day, or you can do it in the afternoon or evening of the day before. And monthly. Doing this monthly is also a great idea. Okay. And what this does is that all those to-do things that are running around your head, like when you do it on a monthly basis, what it does is it allows you to realize that, like, oh, that thing doesn't actually have to happen this week. That can happen later on in the month. And then you can write it down. Your brain can stop holding on to it. Okay, you're saving space, time, and energy. But it's scheduled in for later in the month. Okay, you don't have to feel panicked about it today because you know it's going to happen later in the month. So I do recommend daily, weekly, and monthly. Some people do this quarterly, yearly. That's up to you. I think it's a great idea as well. So when we step back from the daily, and doing this, like, in all cases, daily, weekly, monthly, what it does is it helps us step back from the daily grind, from being in it, so to speak, and we can get sort of like an up high view of what, oh, sorry, I'm distracted. There's people here. Oh, it's my son and his friend. We can get an up high view of what's going on, and life tends to feel less crushing. Okay, so we really want to do this. So what I recommend using is something called the Eisenhower Matrix. And this can be used for daily activities or for longer term planning. This is what I use also in those moments of overwhelm. So when I'm like, freaking out, and then I need to bring myself down, and I get to that 4th step, when I get to the arranging, I use the Eisenhower Matrix or method to do that in the moment, daily, weekly, and monthly. Okay. And I recommend you do this as well. So really, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's the same process for any time period. So this is how you do it. So the Eisenhower method is you categorize your to-do list into 4 sections. So urgent and important tasks, important but not urgent tasks, urgent but not important tasks, and neither urgent nor important. Give me a second. Actually, what I'm going to do here is, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to, if I can, well, maybe I can't. I was going to pull up a printable for you, but it's not where it was. I will, here it is. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And sorry for the wait. I have to find it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is what the priority matrix looks like, what I call it, the priority matrix. So I do this. I don't do this on this particular piece of paper. I just do it. I've done it so many times now. I just essentially, for my daily routine, I do it on a scrap piece of paper. That works fine for me. Totally up to you how you use this. I do use this for my weekly and monthly planning. So the priority matrix. So here you can see the urgent, not urgent. You can see the important and urgent. You can see the not important and not urgent. And you can see the not important and urgent. I know this just sounds like a bit of gobbledygook at this point, but what this is, so the important and urgent, these are the things that you need to do immediately. So it's really important, and it has time constraints around it. So in my story, an example of this was those awesome ideas that were buzzing about in my head. I needed to, it felt important to me that I get them down on a piece of paper. And it was urgent, because if I didn't do it, I was going to forget them. And the longer I held on to them, I knew the more stressed out I was going to get. So that felt important and urgent. So these went in the do immediately list. And then the important but not urgent. This is what I do next. I actually flip these, but the important and not urgent, these are the things that are really important, but they don't have the same kind of time constraints around them. So what this looks like is, getting the kitchen clean in that story. It felt important to me, but it wasn't actually urgent, right? Whereas getting to work felt pretty important and pretty urgent. So it went on this side of the list, right? But the kitchen could happen later. That was fine. So I wrote it down there, and then you decide when you're going to do it. This is an important part of this. So you schedule this in. And then the not important and urgent, this is things that feel urgent but are not important. This is a tricky one to understand, because you're like, if it's urgent, why isn't it important? But these are things that are good to delegate. Okay, so this would be an example. Like, it felt pretty urgent to me that my son's mess get cleaned up off the table. But it wasn't actually important to me. This was something I needed to delegate to him, okay? He's 15 years old. I don't need to be cleaning up his mess, right? So it was urgent. So then this went down as like, hey, when he gets home from school, this is getting delegated to him. And then the not important and not urgent, these are the things that you should do later. And I would like to add, or maybe not at all. Like, this is where social media lives, right? Scrolling social media for an hour needs to go on the not important and not urgent. And this is something that so many of us, I think, are guilty of in this day and age, is that we think we don't have time. There's not enough of us to go around. But if you look on your phone and discover that you've been on social media for an hour and a half today, we have to have a conversation about that, because these three things always come before this. This is the, like, if I have time. Now, that being said, because a lot of us scroll social media as a downtime is important, okay? It's absolutely important. And what downtime looks like is what we need to consider, because maybe downtime is actually going for that nice walk on the fall day. Maybe it's actually because you didn't sleep very well last night, lying down for 20 minutes and doing a non-sleep deep rest session. I can talk about that in a different training. Let me know in the comments below if you want to know more about non-sleep deep rest. It's a way to put your brain into a place of deep rest without actually going to sleep. It's like power nap times 10 kind of thing. So if you want to know more about that, just non-sleep deep rest in the comments. I can do a training on that. So anyway, this is the priority matrix, or the Eisenhower Matrix or method, as it's also called. So urgent and important tasks, tackle first. Important but not urgent. They are important tasks, but they're not time sensitive, right? So they should be scheduled and they should be planned. This is the quadrant where actually you should be spending most of your time. Urgent but not important. So these are great if you can delegate these tasks. And sometimes these are the things that might also be distractions. If there's things that we really know we should be doing, but we don't want to do them, often we'll do these urgent but not important tasks instead, because we distract ourselves from the thing we don't want to do when maybe we could be delegating, right? And then the neither urgent nor important, they're not important, they're not time sensitive, and we want to minimize these or eliminate them from our daily routine, right? Okay, so if you have any questions about the Eisenhower method, maybe just comment method below, and I can reach out and let you know a little bit more about it. I do have that printable and the instructions that go with that printable, so I will leave those in the comments below the video. So check it out there. If you don't see them, please, or if something goes awry, I'm going to admit I'm not the most technologically savvy person. So if it's not there, please let me know in the comments. Just, let me know the printables aren't here, and I'll make sure you get them. And use that Eisenhower for sort of long-time planning and preventative, a way to prevent overwhelm, but also use it in the moment, in that fourth step of the ABBA method, when you're having to sort of organize all your thoughts in your head and arrange your life, then use this method as well. But the bottom line really here is that getting that stuff out of your head in a prioritized way and a little in advance, it greatly reduces the possibility that you're going to fall into that spinning whirlpool of overwhelm. So it reduces it. And because life is over, even if you do this every day and every week and every month, right? Life is life and it happens, and overwhelm is still going to happen, right? So when it does, use the ABBA technique to get out of it fast, instead of just spinning in it for an entire day or an entire lifetime. Some of us are kind of living in a place of overwhelm all the time. So let's learn to get out of it, because our body needs us to. Our productivity is going to increase when we do it. And for me as a health coach, the bigger thing here is that your stress is going to decrease. And we really want to decrease the stress in your life, okay? So yeah, if you have any questions about this, please drop them in the comments. I will respond. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable in using these methods in your life. If you want to know more about how to incorporate the ABBA or the Eisenhower methods into your life, you can book a call with me. I'll put the link for that in the comments as well. And if you just in general feel like you need support in learning how to prioritize yourself, because that's a big part of this, right? Like if you don't feel like there's space in your life to prioritize yourself and your sanity and your health, then we need to talk, because you absolutely are worth it. You absolutely deserve it. And we need to get you to a place where you feel that and experience that and do that. So if you feel like you need support in learning how to prioritize yourself, then let's talk. You can use that same link. We'll have a quick phone call, and I'll just see where you're at and see where you need help. So look for the link, the booking link in the comments below. And I hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday. I hope it has no overwhelm in it. I hope it's just calm, smooth sailing. You can stay in your parasympathetic nervous system. And I will see you all next week with another training. And thanks so much for watching.